Mark Gronowski's a Hawkeye. That's good. Uh, Basketball team, not so good. Ugly first half of basketball. We are at half. We're going to talk Mark Gronowski and a little bit more. It's a rapid reaction mid-game. Locked on Hawkeyes here today.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Doing things a little bit different here. We're at halftime of the Iowa-Nebraska basketball game. Be back with you afterwards with a rapid reaction to that one. But while we got some time, and we'll move the frustrations of what we saw in the first half of the basketball game aside here momentarily, let's get into the big news of the day as we've been waiting days and days and days. And we finally get here. Mark Gronowski is an Iowa Hawkeye. It was, I think, something that we could see. It was trending that direction, that Iowa was going to get their guy. It came down to the fact of, was he going to go to the NFL, take a shot, likely a third-day pick, fifth, sixth, seventh round, something like that, or potentially even have to go the undrafted free agent route, or on the other side, were they going to be able to make their shot? And Iowa did. Iowa made the presentation, and as we talked about earlier this week, it was something where they laid out a plan. I think they put a formula together that made a whole lot of sense. And the biggest thing that they had to sell is this is going to be different than what Iowa football has been known for over the last 5 years. That's a difficult sell. It's a difficult sell for a lot of people. Now, money helps. And the Swarm Collective did a really good job of getting the funds together to make this happen, to get a guy that was a wanted quarterback. Look, this wasn't just Iowa was the only one that wanted him. And you look at the portal rankings that are out there. ESPN had him as the number 4 quarterback. Another one of the recruiting services had him as a top 10 player at the quarterback position coming out. This was a coveted player. This was a player that other schools wanted to bring in on visits. And he simplified things. It was going to be Iowa or the NFL. I think it was as simple as that. And Iowa, Tim Lester, Kirk Ferentz and company were able to lay out a plan of why this Iowa football team is going to be different offensively, why the passing game, more importantly, is going to be different. Now, if you've been hiding behind a rock and you don't know who Mark Gronowski is, right? You don't know kind of why the excitement is there. Well, you start right here with the numbers, and the numbers are immense. Over 10,000 yards passing in his career. He's thrown for 93 touchdowns. He has also rushed for 1,700 yards and another 37 touchdowns. He's accumulated 130 touchdowns in his career. But it's not just the numbers. Big quarterback, good size, can move. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not a runner that's going to shift and make a guy's ankles break. That's not who he is. But he's going to lower his head. He's going to scramble when necessary. He's going to be able to pick up yardage. And when you score 37 times, even at the FCS level on the ground over 4 years, that's highly impressive. The other thing that you hear about Mark Gronowski, and the part maybe that I like more than anything, the numbers, the arm strength, the talent that he has, all those things are great. But it is the intangibles. It is the winner. And I think if you played any level of sport, don't care if it's high school all the way through the professional level, I think we all know those guys that are just different, right? The guys that are gamers, the guys that do step up, the guys that have the leadership qualities, and they're not going to let you lose. It doesn't mean you win every time. But there are those kind of people, and that's what you hear about Mark Gronowski, is he's that kind of guy. That he has that intangible. Those things that you can't quantify, those things that you can't put a number to, he is that kind of player. So the question I get, and I heard this a couple of times today, got a text from a couple of buddies, and the question was, why is this different? What changes now with Mark Gronowski? We know the difficult nature of the schedule next year. 3 playoff teams will be coming into Kinnick Stadium next year. Road trips to Wisconsin and Iowa State and Nebraska. It's going to be a daunting schedule next year. It's going to be incredibly difficult. You already have Brendan Sullivan. I heard a bunch of that. Well, you already have a quarterback. That's fine. Iowa can't afford fine going into next year. Iowa needs somebody special. Iowa needs a difference maker at the quarterback position. Brendan Sullivan's not a difference maker. Brendan Sullivan was fun because he was a guy that could move around, and we hadn't seen that so long at the quarterback position. But Brendan Sullivan, as a quarterback over the course of a 12, 13 game season, he's not a difference maker. He's 3-8 in his career as a starter, and we saw the warts show up. 2 terrible throws against UCLA, late and across the middle, did it twice. Got his bell rung a couple of times in that game and eventually was out with the ankle injury. He comes back in the bowl game, looks very good in the scripted plays, but when those scripted plays went away and after he got hit again, he didn't look like the same guy. You can blame play calling, saying that Iowa went too conservative. I think if you look deeper at that, you'll find that that wasn't exactly the case. But that aside, so that's what we're left with. And that's what we kind of have here is Mark Gronowski can be a difference maker. He can be different. A collection of wide receivers that come back a year older. Jacob Gill acclimated himself, I think, incredibly well. Yeah, he had the tough drop against Mizzou. It's going to happen. But proved at minimum, this is a good receiver. This is a solid receiver. Reese Vanderzee showed flashes as a true freshman, something that's a rarity. You get excited about his upside, maybe what he could be. We saw more and more Jarrett Bowie, and he did it as a blocker, but also we know that there's some ability to go along with it. Dayton Howard's a big guy. And now they're also looking to bring in the kid from Chattanooga. So you got a lot there. And if they can get that speed component, if you get Seth Anderson healthy for a season, I mean, how big would that be? You saw it when he came back in the middle of the year. He's fast. Seth Anderson's got speed. I mean, he can make plays. If Cade McNamara would have delivered a good ball, he would have had a touchdown, as he did in this first play 2 years ago. There's a chance. And that's all it is a chance. And maybe I'm crazy. And maybe I shouldn't, but I believe in Tim Lester. I really do. I believe that Tim Lester can be the guy that is going to deliver competent play on the offensive side. We saw the improvements this year in the running game. We saw just overall the offense, what a step forward it took. That's what you have. That's what you're going to be. And I think there's a deserved level, of excitement that goes along with it. We're going to talk more about this as we have a little bit more time. We're just at halftime of this one. Want to get something up, though, live on YouTube. You can catch us right now if you're just listening a little bit in the post. We will have this up for you on the podcast side here momentarily after it goes final. But more on this coming up. We got to talk a little bit more about the basketball first half, though. Definitely want to get into that. The frustrations that were there, and boy, were they immense. Just a terrible first half overall from Iowa. Basketball, some crazy things. And where's Drew Thelwell? Well, it took us 12 minutes to find out of Game Time what it is. We'll talk about that when we come back. Locked on Hawkeyes. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money helped me find subscriptions that I forgot I was paying for. It happened to me a couple of times. I had a few subscriptions I didn't even realize I was still paying for. I completely forgot about them. And with Rocket Money, made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. For me, I love the subscription tracker, being able to save money, always huge. Trying to set a little money aside for the family, do something fun this summer, and that definitely helps. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. One more time, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Trent Condon back with you once again here, live halftime edition of Locked On Hawkeyes as Iowa trails by 3 against Nebraska here. And if you're watching live on YouTube, we're about 8 minutes away from the second half. So let's get into it. Drew Thelwell, I think that's the big question. And we don't have to know everything, right? We don't. But something happened. So I tweeted out a picture. It came from the Iowa basketball Twitter account, Iowa Hoops, and it was before the game, Brock Harding and Drew Thelwell, and you can see on the clock, there was 44 minutes left in the pregame when they're jumping together at midcourt, banging, hips. Is that what you do? I don't know. I'm old and weird. Whatever they're doing, where you leap and you bounce into each other, right? You jump into each other, you mosh pit into each other, whatever you call it. So they're doing that. And I don't know if that's where the injury happened, but then game starts. Well, Thelwell's not in the starting lineup. Okay. That's odd. But I guess Nebraska a little bit bigger now. Maybe they should have gone bigger the last time out, but they didn't. Okay. So they put an extra big in there. You go back to Laje Nabale, and Thelwell's on the bench. And the first half goes, and it's getting towards the 12-minute mark. Brock Harding's playing terrible. Had a couple of turnovers, hit a three-pointer early. His next one hits off the side of the backboard from the wing. It wasn't the corner. It wasn't the wing, like the corner wing, whatever. How do you hit the backboard from there? Goodness gracious. Right before the game, I was at my son's 5-year-old basketball. I didn't even see any of that. Off the side of the backboard. Not from the corner either. Woof. Anyway, you're asking, where's Drew Thelwell? And so the questions start building. And on social media, they start building. And we're waiting and waiting. And, oh, he's out. Questionable, I guess is what they said. Questionable, right? To come back in there. Again, we don't have to know. But I will tell you one thing. As a gambler, where there is participation reports that are put out, I didn't see anything on the participation report about that. Tweaks happen. Turn an ankle, twist a knee, whatever it is. They said lower body on the broadcast. Paul Burmeister on the call. That's what they said, but I don't know. It's just the oddity of it. And I don't know. Defensively, speaking of Brock Harding, he's getting bullied. They start to post him up a bunch. And this has always been the concern with Brock Harding. Like when you're 160 pounds, there's going to be physical matchups that you're going to struggle with. And we see that with Brock Harding. But they keep going inside. They're posting him up. And that's going to happen, right? There's small players in the Big Ten. There's guys that have been able to survive. And you're going to have to take the good and the bad with the Brock Harding. You just are. He's not a perfect player. Iowa doesn't get perfect players, okay? There's a wart here. But nobody's helping. Watching this team defensively, going back to Friday night, and you have to anticipate, right? If there's any kind of just testicular fortitude with the squad, we're not going to get beat up like that. And then you see it happen. Guys looking around. I don't. I've talked to people that have gone to practices that have been inside Iowa basketball. Yes, it's an offensive system. That's what Fran coaches. It's an offensive game. We're going to get up and down the floor. And he's great at it. He's a great offensive coach. Not a good. He is a great offensive coach. But my frustration continues with this program as we've been having this conversation now for 7 years. Ever since Adam Woodbury graduated, this team has been awful every single year defensively. Have they done anything to change? No. Have they done anything in terms of hedging, more drop coverage, change what they do in the zone defense? There's changes, there's looks, but there's not a dedicated effort to do something. Do you bring in a true defensive coordinator like Michigan's done in the past and other programs have done? No. It's just more of the same. Roll the ball out, hope for the best. And you see it tonight. I mean, this fan base has just so completely checked out. And after talking to a few younger people, so one of the broadcasters on the Iowa Sports Radio Network with myself, Lucas Strain. He's on the afternoon show from 2 to 5. And Lucas just graduated from Iowa, loves Iowa basketball, loves Iowa sports. And Lucas this is a guy that just graduated college. We're not talking about my son that's 5, my daughter that's 9. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a guy that's now 23 years old. He has vague memories of the Licklider era. All he remembers in his vivid memories are the Fran McCaffrey era. And think of the number of fans that we have lost. I know our demographics, certainly watching on YouTube. And I know it's an older group. Old like me. I'm in my mid-40s. And you guys skew older. And you know what? We have these memories, but that's not for everybody. And we're talking about a lost generation, 26 years without a Sweet 16. I've defended Fran a ton. But boy, it feels like we have almost reached the point of no return. And if you lose this one, this is going to be trouble. This is going to be big trouble. With that, The game's back on. We're going to flip back over and get ready for this. If it ends in a loss, it's not going to be good. If it ends in a win, I'll be excited. I'll be happy. We need some happy. Mark Gronowski makes us happy. We'll be with you again after the game here, a little bonus episode, and a lot more on Mark Gronowski, more on Phillips, the wide receiver from Chattanooga, the potential of getting him. What else is in the Iowa portal on the football side of things? Portal Kirk is struck again. Can Iowa bounce back in the second half? We'll talk about that. Back with you later tonight with more Locked On Hawkeyes. Hey, hit the subscribe button if you're watching right now on YouTube. It just takes a moment. Really do appreciate it. Even if you're not watching every single time, lets you know when there is a new episode and really helps us with those metrics, those analytics, those numbers. Really does help. Just hit subscribe. Takes a moment here on Locked On Hawkeyes. If you're listening on the podcast side, 5-star reviews, really would appreciate that. We'll be back with you again tonight with more rapid reaction, Iowa, Nebraska after that one, and more in the portal. We'll talk to you then. Go Hawks.